Hello, this is Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Today I'd like to visit with you about stick-to-itiveness, which essentially is a dogged determination to persevere even when the odds appear insurmountable. Let's go back more than a decade ago when RCAF asked the Packers and Stockyards Administration to investigate price anomalies in the U.S. cattle market to determine if the multinational beef packers are violating the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921. This was in the mid to late 2000s, when cattle feeders were experiencing many consecutive months of red ink, as were cow-calf producers whose returns per bred cow were well south of break-even. But the USDA Packers and Stockyards Administration was disinterested in our request. Undeterred, we then asked Congress to intervene by passing legislation to force USDA to write rules to implement the provisions of the Packers and Stockyards Act that prohibited beef packers from granting undue or unreasonable preferences to some cattle feeders, but not to others. We refer to such undue preferences as sweetheart deals, which we believe the packers were providing only to their preferred formula contract feedlots. Congress agreed with us and in 2008 Farm Bill required USDA to promulgate rules to implement the undue preferences provisions. And then in mid-2010, the USDA issued proposed rules to implement those key provisions, and the USDA and Department of Justice conducted joint workshops around the country to receive input from farmers and ranchers. In addition, over 60,000 public comments were submitted to USDA during the rulemaking process, most of which supported the immediate finalization of the rule. The meatpacking lobby, however, which predominantly included the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, or the NCBA, were incensed and afraid that USDA, for the first time in nearly 100 years, was actually going to write rules to stop the anti-competitive conduct of the beef packers. The NCBA and the rest of the meatpacking lobby flexed their muscles, and they called in their congressional chits made possible from all the contributions they had made to members of Congress. They coaxed 147 members of Congress to block the USDA from finalizing the rule. Each year, for about 4 years, the meatpacking lobby employed Congress to pass legislation in the federal budget that effectively blocked the USDA from finalizing those critical rules. But eventually Congress grew weary of continually stalling the implementation of the rules that Congress itself had demanded the USDA write clear back in 2008. Then, just days before the Trump administration took office, the USDA reissued its rules in 3 parts, and the 3 rules became known as the GIPSA rules, named after the agency's full name at the time, the Grain Inspection, Packers and Stockyards Administration. But this was the beginning of the end for the GIPSA rules. The meatpacking lobby once again called in their chits, but this time with the new administration rather than with Congress. One of the first official acts of Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue was to withdraw the GIPSA rules, and he did so at the behest of the meatpacking lobby. In 2017, Secretary Perdue effectively killed the GIPSA rules. But just before the Secretary killed the GIPSA rules, fed cattle prices had plummeted $67 a hundredweight, and calf prices had plummeted $70 per hundredweight. The meatpacking lobby was elated. During this unprecedented price collapse, however, RCAF went back to Congress and again requested a comprehensive investigation to determine again if the meat packers were artificially depressing prices in violation of the Packers and Stockyards Act. Then Congress's 2016 investigation lit a fire under USDA, and the agency is right now planning to reissue rules to finally implement the critical provisions that prohibit packers from granting undue preferences to their preferred feedlots and denying the same to our nation's smaller independent farmer feeders. Today, several members of Congress, including Montana Senator Jon Tester and Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley and Ohio Representative Marcy Kaptur, are circulating a letter to the USDA that states this: USDA should ensure packers are not providing preferential marketing arrangements to only a select group of large livestock feeders while excluding opportunities for smaller independent feeders to remain profitable. So another definition of stick-to-itiveness is never quit till you win, which happens to be the RCAF USA's motto. You can help us win by calling your 2 senators and your representative as soon as you hear this message to urge them to join the Tester-Kaptur letter that addresses undue preferences. With that, we're out of time. We hope you have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.